Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with me, Tom Alvarez. My guest on today's episode is former dancer and current choreographer Joshua Blake Carter, Artistic Director of Dance Kaleidoscope. Join me now as I go on the aisle for my conversation with Joshua. Welcome, Joshua Blake Carter. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You know, you just told me that your dancers call you JBC.
It's true. It started when I first moved to Chicago. People gave me that nickname, and it stuck. And I actually used it like as my Instagram handle. And I used to have T-shirts that said JBC on them. So when I taught, people would know who. Pictures were taken. You could find me on Instagram, and it's kind of been my nickname.
And since this isn't a video podcast, people can't see that you're wearing this wonderful. Is that new merch?
It is new merch. We just got new
DK.
Yeah, new Dance Kaleidoscope.
I want one. Will that be available at your concerts?
Right now, we're doing an online merch shop, which is awesome because what people can do is they can go in there and there's
cool.
30 products, and you pick what you want, and they make it to order.
Really?
So it's better for the organization because we don't have to, put the money up front, because merchandise, as I think a lot of people know, can be a pitfall. You spend money and don't sell it all. And this puts us in a place where the merch store, they do everything for us, and people get what they want for Dance Kaleidoscope.
Coffee cups? And
coffee, everything.
Wow.
Basically anything you want is on that website.
Okay, so what's your website? Let's tell people that right off, and then we'll repeat it at the end of this.
Absolutely.
Well.
It's dancecal.org, and it's Cal, K-A-L, because sometimes it sounds like, I think people think it's calories. I'm like, no, we're not. we're not a fitness thing. Dance Cal, K-A-L.
Okay, so I've interviewed you at least 2 times prior to this, I think, on my online column.
Yep.
I interviewed you and your esteemed partner.
Yes, Kim Goodfriend, yeah.
Yeah, and I interviewed you just when you came to town, right?
Absolutely. I think within my first couple of weeks.
And I think it was the first time she and I had also talked together. Well, the 3 of us talked, and you guys were just starting your new era, if you will. I think she'd been in place for about a year, right?
Yeah, I think she was there 2 years, and it was when we met with you, it was my first month. So
okay. How long ago was that?
A year and a half.
It's hard to believe.
I know.
Wow,
so I'm finishing up my second season.
A lot of water under the bridge. Well, I've observed you since the first time I met you. I run into you a lot, and from my experience covering the arts for as long as I have, those who are most successful with their organizations do FaceTime in the community. And no one can say that you don't do your FaceTime, because I see you at lots of arts events.
Well, I had a mentor, somebody who I really looked up to in Chicago. Her name was Julie Nakagawa. She runs a company called DanceWorks, and she said to me one time, if we're not supporting each other, how can we expect other people to? So if we're not going to, if I'm not going to go see someone else's show, why would I expect them to come see my show, more or less, then invite others to see it? So I learned that valuable thing of community a long time ago. We all have to support each other and be at the things, because that's how we learn, and that's how we create a successful arts ecosystem.
And plus, you're the face of the organization. You represent the organization when you're out there, right?
Absolutely. And, I want people to know that Dance Kaleidoscope is a community partner, that we're not... I never want us to be seen as everybody and them, and I think every organization feels that way. I hope that all of us as leaders are out there showing our support for each other.
And wouldn't you say that it's also for you personally as an artist, just as an individual, that absorbing all that art out there, that it also impacts on you too, right? And your work?
It inspires you to be better, to be different. I love seeing stuff and being inspired to think differently. Sometimes it can be as simple as something, a technical element that I'll see in a production, and I'll go, I didn't think that, I never thought about that. That's so cool. How can I reimagine some of those elements in my works? Or hearing an opera and you hear some music that perhaps is familiar or unfamiliar, and it inspires you to then go explore. So there's so much that you can tag team off of each other and be inspired by each other's art.
Well, I couldn't wait to ask you this, because after a year and a half, I remember asking you in the beginning when we first met about your impressions at that point. And of course, you had only been in town briefly and you were just getting introduced, but I'm sure you have had a lot under your belt. So where are you right now? Give me your perspective on the landscape, the performing arts landscape of Indy.
It is thriving. I mean, I think that people outside of, so I came from Chicago, and a lot of times people ask me, what else is going on there? And it's hard to capture it all in a conversation, because I am never bored. There is always something to do. There's always something to see. I have to sometimes say no to things just so that I can have a night where I, decompress and watch silly TV or something, because there's so much going on. And I think that is something people outside of Indianapolis do not know and understand, is the magnitude of our thriving arts community. We have everything here. I mean, you've got great theater, you've got great dance, you've got great music. I mean, our symphony is world class. There's just so much that I think people don't know, and that I didn't know. Before I moved here, I really only knew Dance Kaleidoscope, and it had only really been on my radar for several years. It was not even something that had been a long term in the back of my mind. I had only met this company in 2021. So I have just been blown away by what we have here and what's going on here, and I just think more people need to know about it, which is kind of one of my goals with the company, is to be nationally recognized. I want people to go, oh, Dance Kaleidoscope, what are they doing? What's happening in Indianapolis? Should we be looking? I want that curiosity from people around our country going, what's Indianapolis doing?
Tell me about your perspective, though, when you were living in Chicago. Were you familiar with Dance Kaleidoscope?
It was recently on my radar. So in 2021, I staged a work here for choreographer Brock Clausen. So he had sent me down. It was a piece called Sneaky Pete that I premiered as a dancer with Giordano Dance Chicago. And I had heard about Dance Kaleidoscope, but I didn't know a lot about them.
Did you know about David Hochoy, the artistic director?
I really, embarrassingly, David, I'm sorry, because I'm sure he's going to listen. I didn't. But what I will say about this is, I met David, first of all, who is such a wonderful person and has been a huge champion of mine since I've gotten here. Came down to set this work, and the company had just been in our space, at Factory Arts District for a year at this point, maybe not even a full year. And I remember walking into the studios and being blown away by the space. I remember meeting people who knew the organization, loved I remember thinking to myself, why didn't I know about this? Why don't more people know about this? So then, after I applied for the position and was appointed to the artistic director position, so many people that I know came out of the woodwork to say, I know David, I danced with David, or I danced at Dance Kaleidoscope in such and such year. There were so many people in my immediate dance sphere that knew the company, had worked for the company. So just goes to show that it is still that very small dance world.
Well, would you say, and I'll spin this positively, it's not a criticism, but would you say that says a lot about perhaps public awareness of the brand? I mean, I know David, to this day, will tell you that he said, it still blows my mind that people don't know what Dance Kaleidoscope is in my own city.
I mean, I actually get shocked when I go places. I just randomly had an MRI on my hip, something that's been bothering me for years. And, I said something to the nurse practitioner who was getting everything ready, and I told her what I did, and she was like, oh, I've never heard of that. And I'm thinking to myself, how have you not heard of this 53-year-old organization that has had a huge impact here? And I think, yes, some is brand awareness, but I think some is just, there's options. There's so many more options now than there ever have been before.
Of course, we have the sports specter hanging over us in the arts.
Yeah.
We all know that's what the city's hook is, right?
Well, and Chicago was that way. We used to joke that we were an arts organization in a sports town because, when something huge in the arts happens there, you don't have people rioting in the streets. But when the Cubs won the World Series, even I was running through the streets of Chicago because we were all moved by the spirit, you know?
Yeah. Well, that you make a good point about that. You know, do we have in the arts, is there like a Super Bowl where everyone gathers together? I mean, it's a truly community thing. So, yeah. So I guess for those of us in the arts who've been covering it a long time, it still amazes me from my perspective, and because I have this bird's eye view, I go to everything and have for years, you know, so it's already deeply embedded in my consciousness that, oh my gosh, we really have something to promote here. But yeah, it still amazes me as well. So it's been a year and a half, and how are you feeling these days about your accomplishments thus far?
I mean, I couldn't ask for a better year and a half. I mean, of course, there are challenges. There are challenges, I think, in everybody's day-to-day, but the organization as a whole has grown. You know, we saw a large shift in dancers between my first season and the second season, which, you know, a lot of people I had to not talk off a ledge, but a lot of people were like, why is there such changeover? And it's something that's so common, especially in dance organizations, when a new artistic director goes in. But a large part of it were dancers who were ready to do other things, you know, retire or move to Germany, move to New York. I mean, we had people really took the opportunity to evaluate where they wanted to be, which allowed us as an organization to then, you know, cultivate a new group of dancers. And so we've got this really beautiful blend now of dancers who've been here and have some tenure with us and some new dancers. And both sides, there's not two sides, but there are two sides in the way of they're helping to elevate each other. So the younger ones, or the newer ones, I shouldn't say younger, the newer dancers, you know, I think are inspiring the ones who've been here, and the ones who've been here who've got that maturity and that knowledge are helping to pass that along and elevate those dancers. So there's this beautiful new blend there. And I love, too, what we're presenting on stage. You know, this year is the first it's my second year, but my first that I've planned as an artistic director. And we will have had 3 guest artists by the end of the year creating new works for us, which is something we're going to be starting moving forward. So this was our kind of our pilot year. And from, you know, in future seasons, we will always try to have at least 3 guest artists that will come in.
And you know, that mirrors the original mission of Cherry Jaffe and
Ginger Hall.
Ginger. That was their original vision, to bring in guest choreographers, and that's why they call it Kaleidoscope.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So you're harkening back to the founders and what they kind of envisioned, right?
For sure. Well, and that's the kind of company that I danced for with Giordano Dance Chicago. We were a repertory company, and I feel like myself not only as an artist, as a performing artist, but as a choreographic artist, being exposed to so many different voices helped to elevate my craft. I mean, it was like we were saying with even just going to see other arts organizations and how that can inspire. Imagine being in a room and intensely working with various artists throughout your career and how that can influence the way you move or the way you think, the way you choreograph. So I'm excited to bring that here for our dancers. And of course, I will still be choreographing, and we will also continue to support David's works on programs as well, because what I really am passionate about is giving everyone a really the scope of who Dance Kaleidoscope is. We can't know where we're going, and you can't be a new patron and come in and think this is only what they've ever done. I want to show you what our history has looked like as well. So there's a way to support the legacy of the organization while moving it forward.
Well, you know, I saw most of David's body of work. I'm very proud to say that over its history. I can say that I saw most of it. When I think about it, I really don't remember what I didn't see, but that's quite a legacy, you know, and to draw from that. It's not as if that you're just paying tribute because he was here for such a long time. Some of the stuff he turned out will always be his own.
Absolutely. Very
special. Like Martha Graham. I mean, it's the same thing, you know?
Well, it was like Rhapsody in Blue that we did in the fall. I mean, when I remember last March when we announced that we were doing Rhapsody in Blue for this season, people cheering at the announcement in the lobby of the IRT. And I thought, oh, this is a good sign. People are cheering just at the name. You know, they're going to love seeing it again.
That's something a lot when you have that kind of recognition on a piece that you created in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And all the major choreographers have those signature pieces as
Absolutely.
well, right? Yeah. Back to the organization itself, are you happy with your board leadership? And of course, you have to say yes.
Yes, no, we really do have an exceptional board, and I think it's really a nice, we have a nice blend of people who have really been with the organization along the way for longer durations, and then we have a nice group of newer board members and board leadership, and I think the two things work really well together because just like I said with the dancers, you got people who have the history and the knowledge who can say, well, we know this worked or this didn't work, but then you've got new people that are saying, well, what if we tried this, or we can spin it or look at it in a different way? And I think having those two groups of people really help to make a cohesive board that helps support the vision of what we're doing.
Do your bylaws allow you to be on the board? Are you on the board of directors?
No, Kim and I are at every meeting, but we don't vote in anything.
Okay, and what do you feel the effect has been thus far with all the newer people? Well, you said that, you have various generations, but do you have a good mix of professionals?
Oh, absolutely. There's a wide range of people from IU Health to Eskenazi to the sheriff's office to
law firms.
I know I'm going to forget everything because you asked me. Yes, but it's a great group. We've got people from marketing firms. It's a really nice group, and then a nice group of people too who are in a retirement part of their careers and that are really able to support us a lot too in volunteer opportunities, which is really great.
Well, as you know or may not know, that I've been an arts administrator myself, so these are the kinds of things that I know that I have a great interest and knowledge of about it. I know that you can't put out good art unless you have a governance that people behind you that make it happen behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And actually, when I think about it, DK has always had excellent support.
Yes.
Great leadership, always. And always, people on those boards were always totally engaged.
Well, and so many are still engaged, that were part of the board. Some of them, I'm going to call him out, Mark Varno, who was on the board during Cherry and Ginger's time, was the board president and is still supporting us 40 years later, 50 years later. I think he's really been around since the beginning, and which is incredible. And I meet people like that all the time who are still involved post-board terms. They didn't fall away. There was not I've seen other organizations where people get turned off after being on the board and they leave.
Oh, no, you're right. There truly is an investment from those former board members. In fact, interesting you should bring that up. I was with Mark Varno and his wife the other night. You and I were both guests at, and let's give him a shout out as well, Robert and Virgil's.
Oh, absolutely.
Virgil Chan and Robert Chan, two spouses, and this was a surprise birthday party that Virgil hosted for Robert, and I can't believe he pulled it off.
Me neither.
There were about 100 people there. They were sort of the creme de la creme of the arts community, and all these people that Robert has supported through whatever, and it was at the Cabaret, and it truly was memorable. I will never forget it.
Yeah.
Would you say it was the same for you?
Oh, it was, it was magical. It was memorable. It was something you hope that someone loves you enough to do this for you. That's how truly magnificent it was.
That crossed my mind too. What an honor, and that you don't have to pass away to get that kind of recognition.
Yeah, right.
You get to hear.
You don't usually get to do it when you're alive. You're right. It's not normally alive.
I bring this up because I sat at a table with Mark and his wife, and I'm blanking on her name.
Ann, Mark and Ann.
Ann, delightful. And we talked a great deal about a legacy and where you are today. And you happen to be at the next table, by the way.
No wonder my ears were burning.
Yeah, and that's gave me the opportunity to invite you back on the show. But anyway, it reminded me sitting here talking with them. I felt so privileged to be seated at the table with them in particular. But we should say that Robert is a huge supporter of David's. Of course, personal friendship with David Hocher. They took him under their wing when they moved to town, I think 20, 25 years ago. But they're also big support. Are they on the board, one or the other? Or
They are not currently, and I can't speak to whether or not they ever have been, but I know we're not right now, but they're still such huge supporters. We just had a choreographer in that we're working with for a project for the fall of 2026. And Robert and Virgil, because it was an unplanned, wasn't part of our original plans for the season, for this choreographer to come in. His name is Joshua Pugh. I don't know why I'm being so cryptic. His name is Joshua Pugh. It's a project we're going to be working on, like I said, in the fall of 26. But Robert and Virgil hosted them in their home. They had a nice dinner for us there, which I was really grateful for. And, just treated him like family, and that's how they are with everybody in our organization is, what do you need? How can I help? How can I support? And I know we're not the only organization. They're like that through all of the community organizations they support.
Absolutely. Well, they're supportive of my own company, Magic Thread Cabaret, and have been since we started 10 years ago. They're right there, along with all the other organizations that you said, American Pianists Association.
Yep.
I'm sure that you've run across, we're really rich in that kind of support in this town. When you say that you've met those kinds of donors and supporters and patrons who support multiple companies.
Absolutely. I mean, when I talk with other arts leaders who are my friends in other cities, even in bigger arts cities, I don't even know what that even means, but let's talk about Chicago. Those bigger donors there are spread so thin. And so that support feels, while you're grateful for it, there's something different about here. And I haven't quite put my finger on what it is. I think you're kind of hitting on it, is that there's a group of these supporters, but there's just something different about it. There's just something different about the giving here. I don't know if maybe while we do have a bustling arts community, maybe there's still less to support, so there's not as much being spread out. I'm not really sure what it is, but yes, I've definitely noticed that here.
Crystal DeHaan was the biggest example.
I mean, that's why I'm the Crystal DeHaan Artistic
Tobias,
Director.
And I hope that generation will be replaced with a new generation of givers.
Absolutely.
Do you enjoy fundraising? Because that's part of your job. I know this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't feel like work when you're speaking to people who are passionate about what you're doing. So I think you've probably been in that situation before where you are having to kind of talk someone into it. And I feel like with Dance Kaleidoscope, I've inherited such a strong group of patrons and financial supporters who believe in the organization, and I'm very grateful have come along with me. The fundraising aspect doesn't feel hard or challenging. Not saying it's not difficult, especially
it never ends.
It never ends.
I see David around time, always raising money.
Yeah.
Always raising money. I could just hear him in my ear.
Yeah. But and it never ends. But But it is, I will say, it doesn't feel like work in this community is work in the way of, I need to make somebody believe in what we're doing. People believe in what we're doing. We just have to keep bringing them along with us.
You know what I learned? I took some courses at the School of Philanthropy where they have codified fundraising as a profession, as you know. And that's where I learned that there's definitely psychology about fundraising. Money and sex make people uncomfortable. Those are two taboo subjects.
Yep.
And money is so loaded. And when you ask people to fundraise on your behalf or you fundraise yourself, you have to understand that there is a psychology about it and fears of asking a board member to fundraise. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'll do other stuff. I just can't do that. Well, and then you find out they have their own issues about they don't want people to impose on people, or they don't want to be rejected.
Right.
Or you have to gently suggest that, fundraising for a not-for-profit is a pure motive. You're not asking for a handout.
Right.
You're asking for a gift.
Yeah.
But that's different than asking for a loan or can you give me money because I'm desperate and I need whatever.
Right. Well, and I think too, I know now more than ever, most of our support is coming from contributed income. Grants are becoming less and less. Who knows what's going to happen with federal arts funding?
Goodness.
I mean, that's a
which
whole
was
other thing.
Which is growing less and less anyway.
Absolutely. And so contributed income from private donors, from patrons, is a huge part of how we operate. So it's essential that we have that. But you're right. Some people it feels weird, it feels hard, but it's not. It really is just about, that's how we go along. We're not asking for the handout, as you said.
I did sales for a bit, and I was awful at it. But I thought I'd be successful because I know how to fundraise well for not-for-profits. You know, I've been a director of development. I've been arts administrator where that was part of the job. But it was a different animal, and you can't just close within like a 30-day period if you're selling a widget or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's developing relationships. And in my world, and I think this is, it follows me, it's really, you can have donors who also, you become your friends, your close friends.
Absolutely.
And they support you because they like you.
Yeah.
As they would with anybody else that they like and want to help. You
Right.
know? And when you do speak with passion, it comes from a place of sincerity in the heart.
Yeah.
You agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that something I'm starting to talk about when I'm talking with people about finances and about supporting the organization is, you are supporting the artistic product, which is wonderful, but it's also sustainability. You're also helping an organization to make sure it stays open, to make sure we keep offering jobs to people. I mean, we have one of the best contracts for a company of our size that I know of.
But really?
I mean, a lot of
Are
companies...
you including health and all those things?
Correct.
About? Yeah.
I mean, we work, it's a 40-week contract. There are paid holidays. We have health insurance. There's other perks for the artists during performance weeks, so that, because many of them do have second jobs, so we try to support them in other ways so that when they're losing that income a week during a performance week, you know, a lot of people don't really realize that. They come see the show and they think, wow, these dancers are amazing. But also they had to take off from their other jobs so that they could perform. I mean, there's a lot that goes into being an artist, and our contract, and a lot of it, you know, Kim has made some really positive changes since her arrival, just little things where she saw, oh, we can do this, which will improve quality of life, and we can improve that. But it makes our contract really attractive. I mean, we had 202 people apply to audition this year.
Wow.
And, you know, we only invited 30 out of those 202 because we don't do an audition where you come and get cut. We do an audition where you come and we work with you for 2 days and we get to know you and see how, because we spend more time in the studio than we do on stage, so I want to know how it is to work with you. But it just shows me, if we've got 202 people applying to move to Indianapolis to dance for our company, something was going right here, you know?
Mm-hmm. The dance world is so incredibly small. So even if DK hadn't been known by the public at large, though, dancers have always known about the company.
Yes.
Because dancers talk, choreographers talk, and people guest at different places. So,
well, and a lot of David's peers from the Graham Company are on faculty at a lot of these esteemed universities. So they're talking too. I'm very grateful for, there's a whole new thing that I'm seeing amongst college dance companies where they're reminding their artists, well, don't forget about the regional companies, because it's really easy to get kind of stars in your eyes and think that there's only one company you should dance for, 2 companies you should dance for. You know, like, oh, I have to dance for this company in New York or that company in Chicago, and forget that there are all of these other wonderful companies with legacy, with history, like Dance Kaleidoscope, and that there's a lot to offer. You're going to be artistically enriched. You're going to be, you know, again, it's a longer contract. You can get health care. So a lot of these college professors are now kind of doing this push to go, you're all being too narrow-minded in your search. Open your eyes, see more. But I think a lot of that, too, is a lot of David's peers pointing people here, too, which is so great. And now my peers.
and of course, I think he had impact at least, when he and I last talked on this podcast, I think he said at least 4 to 5 generations of dancers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a lot.
I mean, again,
they have spread the gospel
Totally.
around the country about David's work and the fact that he's a direct descendant of Martha Graham herself. And
well, and I can't go anywhere without somebody asking me, how's David? Which I love, which I love because it connects. It's another connection.
Well, sure. That is a question people want. That people, when I say people, that was natural for people. Okay, so how is Josh going to get out from under David Hochoi's shadow? What's that going to be like? Is he going to finally get like irritable and annoyed about that? It's like, oh, here we go again.
Well, so many people when I first got...
I'm me.
Well, so many people said, what did they say? Oh, you've got big shoes to fill. And I said, I know, that's why I brought my own. And that was my response towards the end of my first year. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I brought my own. And that's what, again, I had said it earlier, but, David's been my biggest champion. I mean, even if his work isn't on a concert, he's at every show.
And he's still doing it on social media. He's still promoting the company.
Absolutely, because it's still his
and
success.
You, yes.
It's still his success, and it's still
sure.
Cherry and Ginger's
no one
success.
can take that away from any of them.
Yeah, I mean, I have said in several interviews that I've done since I've been here, I stand on the shoulders of those people. I could not be successful in what I'm doing without them, and I've said to David, privately, I said, I'm so grateful that I came to a healthy organization. A lot of times when leadership changes in the arts, it's not necessarily, not a lot of times, but a good amount of times, it's not because somebody's retiring. I'm so grateful that I stepped into a place that just, he was making a change and they were making a change. It wasn't, I've seen other arts organizations where it's like, okay, bring me in to save it. That wasn't the case here.
And sometimes people move on because they're asked to because they have founder's disease. And there is such a thing, too, by the way. I learned that.
Yeah.
That term exists in fundraising education. Remember, it's the mission.
Right.
It's the mission. It should live on long after you're gone. That's what you want in an organization. And I love the fact that David embraced that concept.
Yeah.
And that it would go on and on and on and on. And look where isn't it rare for a company to be as old as DK is?
Absolutely. I mean, we're up there with, the company I left, Giordano Dance Chicago, is in its 62nd season. I think Hubbard Street in Chicago is nearing 60. Alvin Ailey's in, I want to say almost 70. If not, I'm butchering that. But those are the companies in which we're in that same echelon of tenure, which again, it goes back to my desire for this national recognition, not for me, but for the hard work that this organization has endured over 53 years. And now what we're doing moving forward, I want people to go, oh yeah, let's look to Indianapolis and look at that.
There's so many parallels between Dance Kaleidoscope in my mind. I interviewed June Markle, the music director of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. Have you met June?
I have, yes.
Oh, wow. Remarkable. And you have so much in common in terms of your vision about the company and putting Indianapolis on the map through your organizations. And he really wants to tour with that company. He wants to record with that orchestra. Do you have visions of touring?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a huge part of my career. So when I was dancing, we only had a small home season in Chicago, and I toured the world. I mean, I've been to Guatemala, I've been to Turkey, I've been to Latvia, I've been to Germany, Austria, all these places because of dancing, and then many U.S. cities as well. And I would love to get the company into tour. And the company did used to tour, and they had the big residency at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for many years. Kim and I are putting efforts into, we've been at the Midwest Arts Expo the last 2 years, making connections. But we would love to do some touring and get out on the road. And it would mean kind of shifting what our season looks like in Indianapolis. But I think that it would also support and boast healthier and fuller audiences if people were like, oh, our home team is out on the road? What? Like other people are filling audiences in other cities? I think that it kind of creates that like, oh, well, we need to make sure we see them next time. I think there's effects of that can also be healthy for the Indianapolis audiences.
How about press? How about national press? Have you had any recently?
Oh, I don't think, nothing.
Or do you have any thoughts of pursuing some?
Absolutely. And I have some connections, some friends that are writers at like Dance Magazine and places like that. I'm very much, though, in the frame of mind that I don't want to call in a favor. I want us to earn it. And I understand that I may then have to go, okay, I think we're in a place where we're earning it. Let me call up my friend and have them come down, to
Well,
come
what
see
about
us.
yourself? Don't you feel like you have plenty to pitch to a magazine like Dance Magazine?
Absolutely. And I know Kim has actually pitched a few articles. And, we're doing this Jaffe and Hall Emerging Choreographer Award this year to celebrate Cherry and Ginger. And we've worked on getting some press around that.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah, and so we just actually finished the work a couple weeks ago with Chai Shi-hung, who's she's a Taiwanese choreographer living in New York City. She's New York City based. And yeah, she's our inaugural winner of the award, but it will be something we do each year, and it will help support and keep growing our repertory, which is pretty
Now,
awesome.
as a journalist, that is a story.
Yes.
That is a great pitch. No, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know Kim has pitched it, so.
And how about touring more locally throughout the state of Indiana, for instance? And you have an education program anyway, right?
We do. We're looking at how we can revitalize that or re-energize that educational program. But we did earlier this year, we went to Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan for a performance. We did go to a dance festival in Milwaukee. But we are looking at some other regional opportunities. Specifically, we've got a lot of great universities in the state of Indiana.
Absolutely.
And many times, that's where performing groups are going anyway. I will say the one complaint that I will have about Indianapolis, and don't crucify me, everyone, but my complaint is this: no touring groups come through here. Sure, Broadway in Indianapolis comes through here. That's one thing, but we're not getting any of the dance companies. They're all going to IU, they're going to Purdue, they're going to Ball State, but they're not coming to Indianapolis. And that actually is hurting the dance ecosystem because people aren't getting to see exposed to other things, and which would then support our local dance. They would say, oh, I loved this. Maybe I should go see
Has
the
there
ballet.
been any outreach to the folks who book at the Palladium? And of course, Clues Hall is refurbishing its hall to accommodate
Right.
bigger and better productions. So is there any thought about, and I know in the past both have, at the Palladium, they usually book companies in the smaller theater, which is, not exactly chopped liver. It's like 600 seats.
Yeah, which is great for dance, for
Yeah,
professional dance.
yeah.
You don't, unless you're going to see, New York City Ballet, you don't need a 4,000 seat
Could it be that
house.
they're not programming because they don't think there's an audience enough to sustain it here?
People are scared of dance. They are. I mean, before I took this job, part of my job with Giordano was working on bookings for touring, and I worked with our agent very closely. And even prior to working with her, we had heard for years that people were afraid of booking dance because their audiences they're intimidated by it.
There you go. It's
What
the
is
same old thing.
Contemporary dance, what does that mean? And so even locally with our advertising, we've been really trying to talk less about we're a contemporary dance company and talk about what you're going to feel, what you're going to see.
I'm going to pivot in a whole different direction,
Yeah.
but I think it's the same I talked to about June. How do you get people in the seats? How do you get them less intimidated about going into the concert hall or classical music? Well, they've reached out to find young people by working on the programming itself, pieces that people will identify with. Steve Hackman, I'm going to his concert this evening, but by the time this show drops, it'll be long gone. But he does a hybrid of classical and contemporary artists.
Bartok and Bjork, right? Is what they're
I
doing.
mean, he is just. Do you know his work?
I do. Well, Courtney Jeffries, who is one of our dancers, is a member of Forte, the young,
great.
the young professional group at
Yes.
the Symphony, and she sings Steve's praises often. And I know she's got a dream of connecting us. Maybe Steve, if you hear this, let's finally connect.
Well, I'm a big supporter of his, and I've interviewed him a number of times, and I will just put that bee in his bonnet, too. Absolutely. I'm going to see him tonight.
But I agree with you about what you're saying about what he's doing, bringing in that popular music and fusing it with
And then
classical.
Jack Everly with his pop series. I
Absolutely.
mean, bringing all those Broadway singers and
Yeah.
pairing them with the orchestra. And those people from Broadway, I mean, Jack he's so well known in that
Yeah.
community and the people he brings here. And of course, they talk about our orchestra.
Right.
One more thing I want to talk to you about that. I meant to bring it up earlier. You as June also, he inherited this whole group of musicians, but there's been a big changeover. There's a lot of new blood. A lot of 30-somethings have come in. There was a lot of attrition. People retiring, and COVID really threw things, in an upheaval. And so, they bring something to the table now that it's a whole new product in my mind. As a reviewer, I mean, I could see it, you could hear it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think about it in respect to dance, and a lot of times when you get new dancers, they're right out of college or they're in their early career stages. I hired this year 2 dancers that were in their 30s. And do you know what I love to see on stage? A mature dancer.
Yeah.
I love it. It just,
Sure.
There's something there. There's something different
Sure,
there.
of
There's
course.
life there. There's different experience. And so that's something also I've been really excited and interested in as a director is, sure, I mean, I hired several dancers right out of college, and we love them. They're wonderful. They're truly wonderful, and I hope that they stay with us, but for a long time. But then hiring the more mature mid-career,
Absolutely.
late-career artist also adds something to your...
And he said the same thing about his musicians. He likes to have the generational blending, but also there's the whole thing about it's important to an organization to maintain the sort of culture of that organization, historical culture, that the old can pass on their traditions, that if you have that in a company, that's important too. Institutional knowledge, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's really good to have a mix. And then lastly there's a connection, the idea that how do you get people less intimidated by what contemporary dance is? People don't want to look foolish.
Right.
They don't want to appear stupid.
Yep.
That's the whole thing that people struggle with. Their perception that art is elitist or that something that it's not for me. I'm not like smart enough to understand that. What are they trying to say? That kind of thing.
Right.
And June talks about how one of the things we talked about the film series where that's a way of getting people to like connect. Like with modern dance, you've been seeing modern dance and contemporary dance in rock shows
Yes.
around every artist in films. You've been
Yes.
seeing this kind of dance forever.
Yeah. I mean, look at Wicked. Wicked was the biggest movie of the year. And Christopher Scott, who choreographed it, you can't look at that movie and go, oh, I wish there was more dance. No, there is dance at almost at every turn of that
And I
film.
tell people, if you can't understand modern dance, think about what you've seen on TV, on MTV
Yeah.
or TV specials or whatever. Those people were trained somewhere at some dance studio,
Yep.
and they learned modern, jazz, tap, ballet.
Well, and I think something that we've been doing to help people feel more that what we're doing is more accessible, on our website for each show leading up to, we have a playlist of the music you're going to hear.
That's cool.
So you can go in, and it's a Spotify playlist, so you can pull it right up and listen to what you might hear. And then the other thing I've been trying to do is, while I sometimes use what somebody might say is challenging music, I want to sprinkle in the accessible music, something that feels accessible to people. So in our last show, we had music by Rufus Wainwright. In the last show of this season, which is in May, we're bringing back this piece that I did last season to Brandi Carlile music. And then I'm also choreographing a new piece to all covers by the artist James Blake, who a lot of people know. And so we're trying to give people that accessibility point, because when popular music pings people's minds. Even if you don't know the song, it can evoke emotion that then allows you to connect to the dance better or differently than you might have if it were to a piece of classical music.
Mm-hmm. Well, in people's own lives, I think they don't ever think about the fact that how music impacts them when they're standing at their home and they're dancing when no one is looking, right?
Right.
And you're seeing more and more of that reflected on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of people trying out their moves for the public.
Well, I mean, think about if you're sitting in the dentist office and the R&B station was on. It would feel jarring because you're used to hearing the light rock station or the classical station at the dentist office, whereas you might at the grocery store hear the top 100 or the R&B. You know what I mean? So we've also, as a culture, decided that certain spaces get certain music.
In your messaging, though, what do you think would improve the public consciousness or perception? Shouldn't there be perhaps more attention paid towards promoting the fact that it's music and dance that you're seeing at a concert?
Well, and we're Yes. And
Or that you're experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, we're and again, that's, I think, part of that was why we wanted to add the playlist to our website.
I think that's great.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
brilliant.
this is what you're going to get. But the other thing that we're trying to get past, too, is, like, this year, if you look at any of our posters for the shows, none of them have a dance image on them. They are all tight images of two people intertwined in each other, moving together. So there's movement, but it's not a jump or a pretty dance picture. Because if you look at the poster, it says Dance Kaleidoscope. Okay, so I know I'm going to go to a dance show because it has dance in the title of the company. And we're trying to give people, just like you might on a theater poster, you're trying to capture the emotion so that people have some different understanding of, I'm not just going to see whatever their perception of contemporary dance is. I'm going to have an experience. We're trying to do different things like this to see what sticks so that we can better market to people. You know, like using a dance image, does that garner more attention? Or having this really emotional, evocative different image, does that do so? So we've been doing some testing like that. But yes, I mean, like I said earlier, trying to talk about dance in a way of,
it's not so esoteric.
yes, here's what you're going to feel. You're going to feel joy. You're going to leave feeling uplifted.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.